Hey folks, I wanted to give you a run through of calculating balusters. So trying to get equal spacing for balusters between newel posts. So in this example, we're going to do just a straight space between from newel post to newel post on like a horizontal guardrail. So you can see what our total space is between our two newel posts and the thickness of our baluster. So there's a great FineHomebuilding article that goes through this. It's called Balanced Balusters. So you could check that out. All right, so we'll get into it. So looking at the BCBC, it requires that we have no space between our balusters more than 100 millimeters. Okay, so that's about 4 inches, but this is a metric problem, so we're gonna go for that. Okay. Now the trick to calculating balusters is that we are gonna take the space from newel post to newel post, but we're also gonna add on this phantom baluster on the end. And what that does is that it basically takes into account the baluster in the formula, and then it makes sure that all we're calculating is actually just the spaces. Okay, so let's have a look at our problem and we'll see if we could solve that. So when we're unsure what the space is, we are going to assume that our baluster width, well, we know what our baluster width is, it's a physical object, but we're going to assume that the space is 100 millimeters because that's the maximum. Now, when we actually go and divide this out, we'll end up being slightly smaller than that. So we'll see how close we can get to 100. Now, of course, if we have a baluster that has some shape to it, we have to measure the width between the balusters at the narrowest point. So if our balusters were, square at the bottom at 35 millimeters, but as you go up, there's some profile to the balusters, you'd have to measure it at the narrowest point. So maybe the narrowest point's actually not 35, but more like 25 millimeters thick, right? So then we would have to assume that's the thickness of our balusters. But for this, let's just use 35. Let's just assume they're like you see here, they're just square balusters. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take the width between newel posts and we want to add on the phantom baluster. So we're going to take 2160 and we're going to go plus 35 millimeters for a total width, including the phantom baluster, of 2195. Okay, so then what we want to do is we want to kind of spitball. We want to guesstimate how many spaces there are if we had a 100 millimeter space with a 35 millimeter baluster. So we'll take the 2195 and we're going to go divided by 135. Again, 100 mil space, 35 mil baluster. And we get 16.259 spaces. Okay, so that is something that we can't do, because if we go with a 16.26 spaces, that basically is going to mean that the last space is going to be, like I said earlier, it's going to be narrow, which is not what we want. We want the same exact space all the way down. So what we're going to do is we either have to round down to 16 or round up to 17. But the problem is if we round to 16, let's show you, we take 2195 and we go divided by 16, right, minus 35. That would make it so that our space between balusters is 102. We can't have that. It's more than building code allows. So we're going to go 2195 and we're going to go divided by 17. We're going to round that up. So we get 129 millimeters. So now what we do, because we added that phantom baluster on, we're going to subtract the phantom baluster off, and then we'll end up with just the width of our spaces. So we'll go minus 35 millimeters. Okay, so 2195 divided by 17 equals 129.12. And then we go 129.12 minus 35, and we get 94 millimeters as the actual space between balusters the whole way down. Now the tricky part here is you can see that we are actually at 94.12 millimeters. So if we have enough spaces, that last baluster space is going to end up being wider, right? So here we have 17. If we go times 17, right? So our last space between baluster and newel post will be 2 millimeters larger than 94. So what you could do when you're actually physically laying out balusters in real life is you can kind of work your way from both sides. And every now and then you could cheat by 1 millimeter, right? So you could have like, put like 95 here and like 95 here. And then that way you make up that extra 2 millimeters and it's really not noticeable, a millimeter here, a millimeter there. And then that way you're not stacking up all of the accumulated difference to the very, very end. Anyways, hope you find this video helpful, guys. Take care.